Hey guys, I just want to let you know I absolutely love using Anchor. I have over 100 episodes with Anchor. And the great thing about it is I get to help a lot of different people. I've had over 1,000 listeners, and I've actually had people reach out to me telling me that it actually saved their life. So if you have anything that you want to talk about, if you have a passion, if you have a goal, definitely start podcasting using Anchor. It's probably the best thing I've done in my podcasting career. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Success Your Why Powers Your How. Guys, thank you so much for hanging on. I want to let you guys know that we also have a brand new podcast that we just started called Vertical Momentum. Please check that out. I want to thank our sponsors for today. His name is Casey Pinkerton. If you guys love handmade leather goods, his company, Pinkerton.co, is an amazing company. He makes some high-end wallets and purses to even compete with some of the best brands. Guys, this is going to be a fun episode. I just made a brand new friend. His name is Darren Farr, and he's got an awesome company. If you love to eat, if you love to cook, you definitely need to check out his company. But he's done some great things in uniform and even better things out of uniform. So, Darren, welcome to the show, my brother. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, anything for a fellow veteran and especially a Marine. I always got to support my people. So how are you doing today?
Not bad for a Friday, just Friday's my end of the week day, kind of check on the website, see how things are doing, check inventory, take stock, that kind of thing. So pretty good.
Yeah, I ran a retail company for 30 years, so I hated doing inventory. So I get it.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil.
You know what? I want to thank you because I'm so excited. I can't wait to try the different samples you're sending me. And I'm so excited. I'm just very grateful for you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What state were you born in?
I was born in Oklahoma. And my dad came back from Vietnam and did the typical thing of married his high school sweetheart. And 9 months after my dad got back, I was born, basically. So, they got married. I don't think he'd been home maybe a week and a half, and they got married. And I came along the following year, and it was fine. Growing up in Oklahoma, I'm half Native American, so that tends to be a typical thing if you're from Oklahoma. Most people have got some form of Native American blood in them. But growing up, my parents actually got divorced when I was about 5 years old, and my mom remarried. And unfortunately, that's where the good times kind of ended. Not to, kind of go into a whole dark period of my past, but my mom married a guy who was let's just put the best way we could say it. He was a functioning alcoholic. And so unfortunately he couldn't keep a job longer than 3 months at a time. So we moved around a lot when I was a kid. I mean, I kind of had that almost like a gypsy nomad lifestyle growing up, and lived in a lot of trailer parks and what have you. So by the time I was about 15 years old, I had a plan to get out. When I finally got to the age where I could be old enough to make my own decisions, I knew from the time I was about a sophomore in high school I was going to join the military because it offered me the best ticket out of my situation, chance to do what I wanted to do. And
now, what branch did your father serve in?
My dad was Army. He was drafted and went to Vietnam, and he was not real happy that I decided to join the Marine Corps, especially that I had chosen infantry as my occupational specialty. I had high aptitude, high test scores, and all that kind of thing, and I could have pretty much chosen any job I wanted in the military. The difference was, everybody's got their history of when they talk with their recruiter and what they want, and especially in our generation where it was more or less selective service, right? You could kind of choose your job before you went in. So I had talked with this recruiter, and I had some very specific goals of what I wanted out of my military experience, and he asked me what those were, and I said, I want to see the world. I'd never been anywhere. I'd never even seen the ocean by the time I joined the military, and so he says, well, your best shot at traveling in the Marine Corps and going overseas is to go infantry. They go on a lot of deployments on Westpacks and Medpacks, those kinds of things. Excuse me. So I said, yeah, that's what I want. And he said, okay, let's get you all, prepped and ready to go. And, you go through the whole military entrance processing stuff, the MEPS, and took the ASVAB and scored a 97 on the ASVAB, and he about had a heart attack. Recruiter wanted to, he literally said the words, I want to kick your ass right now. And I said, why is that? And he's like, because do you know how rare it is for me to get somebody to test this high and I can put them in any job, and you still want infantry? I said, well, you told me that's the one I wanted, that if I wanted to travel. So I got what I wanted out of it. So I'm one of those rare people that tells you my recruiter never lied to me, So I joined the infantry, and yeah, it was everything I wanted to be. I got stationed in Hawaii right out of infantry school, which was a lucky break, and traveled pretty much the rim of the Pacific, and including, going on a combat tour. We got deployed, obviously, to Desert Shield and then Desert Storm, which is kind of ironic that I'm talking to you because 30 years ago today, actually, my unit was, walking out of the oil field fires in central Kuwait, about to take our next objective, which was the Kuwait International Airport. So, spent 2 days on the ground traversing the 30 miles of burning oil fields. So that's a distinct memory I have.
No.
But
how many years did you do total?
I just did a 4-year enlistment. Yeah. So by the time I had finished, that tour and came back, I was kind of ready to move on to the next chapter of my life. I had plans to go to college, and life has a funny way of dropping things in your lap, so to speak, opportunities. So,
tell us how you, quote unquote, fell into the film industry.
Yeah, so it's a funny story. It's one of the few times in my life where I can say I shot my mouth off and it worked out to an advantage. So I'll make this a really brief story for you. But so what happened was I got out of the military, and I was I had a friend of mine who had gotten out a couple months before me, and we stayed in touch. And so I was kind of couch surfing at his place, when I got out in California, and just kind of enjoying the immense freedom I had with no routine and structure and everything. And anyway, he had an uncle who managed a prop warehouse in Los Angeles for the film studios, and he says, "Hey man, you want to come work with me? It's a pretty easy gig." And I said, "Yeah, what is it?" And so what we would basically do, Richard, is the studios would send over an order ticket, like an invoice, to these prop warehouses, and everything from fake ficus trees to furniture to whatever they need to dress a set for a scene or for a movie or a television show, right? And our job was, we were just glorified movers. We'd come up with this big panel truck, and we'd load up the order ticket. We'd drive it to the studio, go on a lot, unload it, have them fill out all the inventory stuff. And that was my day. I would do about 2 or 3 runs a day. And, I was making a couple $100 cash every day. So I always had money in my pocket. And, I was 20-something years old and having a great time. And so one day we show up on this studio. I did be a couple months into this job. We show up on the studio. We're unloading these large, basically almost like Pelican cases. So we had loaded them up and unloaded them off this truck. And I noticed they were all all these big rubber dummy M16 rifles, right? And They had a bunch of different uniform stuff, pieces, and different paraphernalia stuff for this stuff. And when we got off the truck, I'm sitting there, and this guy is signing them out, and he starts handing them, these rifles to these guys standing around in these funky looking uniforms. And I don't know much about your military background, but I would assume that you know how to hold a rifle.
I hope so. After all the drill and ceremony I had to do.
Right. So, as well as I do, that the M16 rifle on the top, where the sights are sitting, is what's considered a carrying handle, right? That's what they call it. And so I kid you not, Richard, he was handing these out like they were suitcases and telling these guys to carry them like this while they were marching. And I couldn't leave that alone, so I spoke up and said something. And I was like, what the hell is that? And these guys like, what? And he's like, I'm showing these guys how they're going to be in this scene, how they have to, they're all extras, background, people in this scene they were doing. I forget the name of it. It was a pilot project that never went anywhere. But long story short is this, I spoke up, said something about it. It escalated to an argument, not really shouting, but me kind of going, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And this guy going, I'm going to have you fired from your job. You don't know your place. And next thing I know, some other guy comes over with a clipboard, and he's observing the conversation. He steps in and he says, well, what's all this about? And so I explained, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That's not how they would carry those rifles, yada, yada. He kind of gives me this look like, well, what business of it is yours? And, and says, well, why does it matter to you? And I said, because I just got out of the military, and that looks like complete bullshit. And he says, huh. So he comes over, talks to me a little bit, asks me about my background, walks away, comes back a few minutes later, fires the guy I've been arguing with right on the spot. It says, hey, we have an opening for a military consultant to work with the extras and the background people and the props and the set dresser. Would you be interested? I was like, oh, man, I already got a job. And he goes, it pays $600 a day. And I said, where do I start? So that's basically the story.
Well, they say sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Yeah. So now, you were in the film industry for, over 10 years. And I got a question to ask. Off topic, but hey, sure. It's my show. I can do what the hell I want to do.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they say don't meet your heroes.
Right.
But now I've also, I was in the health and fitness industry for over 30 years. And the people I thought were going to be the biggest a-holes were some of the nice people. And then some of the people that were, I thought was going to be the nicest people turned out the biggest a-holes. Did you ever have an experience like that where a person you thought was one way actually turned out to be the other way?
Yeah, quite a few times. I mean, when you work in LA, especially, you work in the film industry, and you experience all kinds of personalities, but there is I don't want to bash the film industry if I can avoid it, but there is a kind of a seediness to it because everyone's got an agenda and they're all looking to, look for the next opportunity. And of course, just like with politics, that lends itself to tearing another person down to get where they need to be. Right. And,
I was going to say, it sounds like the government.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those industries where, I always say this, let's leave it at this. I've met a lot of people working in the film industry, and some have been really great experiences and some have not been. So, and some have been very eye-opening. I would say that the people who have longevity in that business and who stay kind of above the fray or out of the underbelly of it. I mean, you see what's happening all the time in the news now. People are getting dragged into scandals and stuff's coming to light years later, that kind of thing. But the people who tend to stay above that fray, there's a reason for it. They're well-grounded individuals who know that this is a profession or a life that they live, and this is their livelihood, so they would never jeopardize that. Similar to in the military, we had people who who rise above it and do well and they succeed, and then there's others who kind of flounder and get caught up in all the trappings and other things and don't leave a good legacy behind. So I will say this: one of my rare opportunities to meet an individual that was just the nicest, most humble human being that I met was it was actually years after I'd stopped really working full time in the film industry. I got to meet Vincent D'Onofrio. And,
Okay. Oh, I love it. He's amazing.
he is an amazing person, and so we got to talk with them and my wife and I, and interesting individual, really, really supports veterans and first responders. And we talked a little bit, obviously, Full Metal Jacket being a poignant film, that I remember as a young man. And,
Yeah, that's a staple of every military person's. One of the movies, that and Platoon are like, they're like the top 5 military movies of all time to watch.
yeah. And so, talking with him about his experience on it and how that was and what he learned, because he was very young when he did that and was early on in his career. So it was just he was very humble and very just almost to the point of self-deprecating, you know what I mean, with some of his stuff and lessons that he learned, and it was very refreshing to hear, because I offered him nothing in the way of moving ahead or whatever, but he was there for a function, and he took an hour out of his time there to go and sit with me and hang out and talk and just basically shoot the shit and kind of fill me in on some details about it that I'd always been curious about. So
Now I have because you were in the film industry and the military. How did that help you? Because a lot of people, when they get out, guys and girls, when they get out of the military, they don't have a mission. They kind of miss the camaraderie. So what was it like going back to school and being an older adult, going back to school to get your MBA and all that?
Yeah.
What was that going back to school?
I enjoyed it mainly because I approached it like I would, a job. And, this was my job. This is what I had to do each day. These were my goals. These were my targets I needed to hit. And I found that most of the professors, I even had a few that were younger than me, that I think appreciated having an older, what they call a non-trad or non-traditional student in their class, especially when it came into classes where there was a lot of thinking and writing and expository thinking that needed to be involved with the learning process. And you have life experience, when it comes to say like an English class, where you're writing about your life or putting things into context. You actually have something to write about, where some of these 18-year-old kids coming out of high school, they barely lived life. So it's their biggest examples would be about whatever the pop culture trend was at the time, and so I had a lot of professors that I think appreciated the maturity and the way I tackled it and approached it. So I had a very pleasant college experience. Now, granted, having been in the military from the time I was out of high school until my early 20s, I had fun just like every other guy who goes, in the military at that age. And so when I went to college, in my 30s, it wasn't a social life or anything I was seeking. It was just, these were the steps I needed to get to this next rung on the ladder, and I went about it from that approach. So I didn't get caught up in, I think, what a lot of college students, get caught up in, which is the entertainment, recreational aspect of college.
So now, what did you graduate with? What degree?
So I have a bachelor's degree in communications and a master's degree also in communications. So.
And now that is when you started working for the VA after that?
Yes. Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Initially it was good. It eventually became a grind. The Veterans Administration, the Department of Veterans Affairs, in a nutshell, is like any other large government agency, it tends to become what I call toxic bureaucracy. And instead of I got into the job because I thought this could be fantastic. I want to help my fellow veterans, and that's the reason I'm in this. And it became less about actually, for me, for my experience. I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but from my experience with what the communicating I was doing was more about, which next, bureaucrat climbing up the ladder that I always referred to as, in the military, we referred to, so you probably get this term, I was surrounded by good idea fairies who had all kinds of little pet things they wanted to do and projects and feel good things to do. And it got to be a point where I was so tired of the grind of sitting in meetings where it seemed like my only job was to sit in these ad nauseum meetings, floating everyone's ego around the room like it was important. So I'm glad now that I'm in a point in my life where I don't attend meetings unless it's something I absolutely want to do or need to do. And I definitely would never, ever, especially from having been in the military, you can appreciate this. I would never subject anybody to death by PowerPoint for the sake of just, I made a PowerPoint. And so I got tired of the grind. I felt like I was kind of just spinning my wheels and not doing anywhere. And I'm a very creatively driven person. I like to create and use whatever I have at my disposal to accomplish the mission I've assigned for myself, or if I have a problem to look at it from 17 different angles, like an infantryman would, and how we're going to achieve this next objective. And so it seemed like it was more about number crunching and data processing and blah, 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 just, and nobody was actually trying to solve a damn problem.
So now 2018 did you retire out of the government system?
I did. They have an opportunity when you work for the federal government where you're allowed to buy back your military time and apply that towards your federal retirement. And so I met the minimum and I said, okay, I'm popping smoke. See ya. It got to be where the last 2 years of my career with the federal government was, I live about 45 minutes away from where I was working. And I got to tell you, buddy, I mean, I can't exaggerate this at all. That hour drive to and from work was it was exhausting, stealing yourself up. Because when you work in a job like public affairs, I always tell people, you're the face and the communication lead for an agency, especially in that local area. You're not allowed to have a bad day. That doesn't exist in your realm, in your world. So when you get out of that car to go into work each day, you got to have your game face on. And it became harder and harder to achieve that every day. And I took some stock into, I love one of your last guests, the gentleman who talked about the mindfulness, and in meditation, and similar kind of process where I took stock and did my own mental list of pros and cons and went, why am I doing this? I'm chasing my own tail. I'm not doing anything other than being a servant that has no interest or desire in the outcome or the objectives involved. So it was time to go.
And then I love, your mission. I love your company. I love barbecue, by the way. Being from down south, South Carolina, in every part of the country, they have different, barbecue is made differently from all different parts of the country.
Sure. I mean, it's like when you go to Italy, there are like 7, 8 different zones of where you can, and their style of what they put their signature with pasta and everything else. So it's the same thing in our country with a signature, American grown dish.
Like sometimes, it depends on where you go. Some of them, they'll make it a lot more, or they'll make it a little bit hotter. So, and I had a friend when I lived in South Carolina. He started his own barbecue business, and it just blew up, and he couldn't keep up with the order.
Yeah.
So, tell us about, you said, you started making these for your friends and family, and it just kind of blew up from there.
Yes.
So tell me about
Well,
that.
to go back before a little bit before that, I had worked on a project with a friend years ago where I had gotten involved with, and I don't know how much you know about apiaries or beekeeping, but I worked with a friend and they were doing a project. What it basically involved was working with veterans who have PTSD and teaching them beekeeping, because if you know anything about beekeeping, it takes full concentration and awareness of what you're doing, because you're responsible for thousands of these little lives and their livelihood. And then, you work together in concert. So you have to be very careful and you have to be very aware. And it really does check a lot of boxes, if you will, for guys like even me who have PTSD, where it's like, I just need something to focus on, a mission, a purpose. Because lacking that, my mind has time to wander and the intrusive thoughts and what have you come into play. So with beekeeping, what I learned was that I learned a lot about these honeybees and just how vital they are to not only that project, but to Earth in general, right? I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize that, if honeybees were to go extinct in this world, that we would have maybe about 5 years of life left on this earth. Are you aware of that?
Yes, because my son actually he has high functioning autism, and all he did growing up was study animals. So I know everything about every animal, including gestation period.
That's fantastic.
So
I got into this, and one of the things that I learned was that the honey itself that they produce, right? And there's all different kinds of honey that are made and everything, but honey is such a great superfood, and it bonds well, and the chemistry, and I started incorporating it more into my diet because it is a sugar, but it's a better sugar for you to process and digest than refined sugar. So I started looking at ways I could incorporate that in the kitchen, and I wanted to make I started tinkering with, and I eventually made a honey bourbon based barbecue sauce that came out really well, and I still make it to this day. And then I started, like you said, there, certain aspects, they like spiciness. So I started kicking that up a little bit and playing with it. And then I started looking back on focusing on what I could do with honey. And I made my first hot honey several years ago, and I started tinkering with that, started blending in other flavors. And it just kind of became this really cool, hobby that I really enjoyed. And for me, the payoff was I created a recipe and I would put it together, and then I would give it out to friends, kind of like somebody paints a painting and then you want to show it off to everybody, right? So I would create these sauces and I would give them out, and I started putting these out. And it's kind of funny how when you plant a seed like that, just watching it grow, because people started realizing, and even my family and I, because of course my wife and kids are my biggest guinea pigs with my new recipes, was that we started finding really cool things that we could do, incorporate into recipes and other things, enhancing things. And so, I may have said to you, we haven't addressed it yet, but my company, even though technically we produce condiments, we don't like to say that, because we like to say that we produce complements. Condiment sounds, it sounds negative. So for us, it's what you can really do and enhance your diet, what you can do with the flavor, all natural flavors, because using honey, I'm not using any refined sugar. None of my products that we produce at Simmerfi we have no preservatives. There are no artificial fillers. We don't use any food dyes, nothing. It's basically the components, the ingredients that are listed on the label is exactly what's in the sauces. So the great thing about honey, and if you know anything about it, the reason why it's a superfood, it's one of those rare things that never spoils. And the reason why is because the chemical bonds that are in it prevent the chance of bacteria or spoilage. So even if you include other ingredients into it, because it will take on a lot of the properties, it acts as its own kind of natural preservative for foods that are infused into it. So that's how it all kind of be. I started really getting into the art of it, the science and everything, and it just became all consuming, pardon the pun. But to the point where my wife and several others were like, you could probably sell this. So I started doing a lot more research, and I started making, by that time I was making hot sauces and using a variety of things. But at the heart of it all is honey that I use. And it's why it's on our company logo. We have the fighting bee. Because here's the thing, if I could go off on a tangent for a moment, if you don't mind, Richard.
No, this is, I love people, when they come on, because they teach what they do. And I love to learn. So, and I'm sure that the people that are listening to this are going to love to learn the story behind the product. So this is exactly what I want.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I just want to make sure I'm not, monopolizing all your time in one direction here. But there are 4 principles about a honeybee that I think I resonate with, and most military veterans will resonate with. Number 1, no bee is an island, right? They're fully taught with skills. So they switch jobs throughout their lifetime, even though their lifetime is actually very brief. They go on from being foragers to then eventually they become leaders, right? They always give 100%. There's no such thing as a slacker or what we would call, in the military, a pogue job kind of thing. That doesn't exist within a honeybee hive. They all work. They all do, like, even sometimes if the queen becomes ill, a worker bee will lay eggs to protect the genetic legacy of the colony. They leave a legacy. They could actually teach each other, and they process that on the young when they come up, and they further them on. So a lot of parallels with the military. But I think the biggest thing that I really liked about the honeybee and what they do is that they have each other's back. I watched a documentary years ago. It talked about that, something as simple as a bee is itchy, another bee wouldn't hesitate to jump on their back, find the source, and help them out. And so those 4 principles of a honeybee are very similar to what it means to go into the military and to have served with men and women that have your back and have one goal in mind, and they work together in concert. And so I really liked that as a foundation, if you will, for the company I was forming. And that, it just kind of, it was synchronous in some respects that, the honeybee is the foundation for a lot of our sauces and that we produce, and we take pride in what we make, and they take pride in what they do because they all work together. And I just thought that's the perfect logo to go with for the business, and
Now, I'm going to ask, because most people that are listening to this are either veterans or they're entrepreneurs or both. And, like, I'm a big Shark Tank guy, and, they will not go in with you on your business unless you're all in on your business. And like they say,
you got to skin the game.
If you do not have a business plan, you have a hobby, not a business. So now, what was it like? People think, oh, I could just create a couple sauces and start selling them, but they don't realize the work that it takes behind, creating an LLC, creating all this stuff. So tell us some of the stuff you wish you would have known before you started your company.
The red tape involved with the Food and Drug Administration. That would be the first thing. If somebody would say, do you realize the amount of paperwork and back and forth and phone calls and research you're going to have to do and to produce something that, other people are going to consume. I think if you work in the food industry and you don't, it's one thing to work in a restaurant, you know what I mean, or own a restaurant and put that out there and you deal with the local health inspector, that kind of thing. But if you're mass producing or even small producing in some respects, a preserved food item, a shelf stable item that you're putting out for people to consume, there is a ton of regulations, and rightfully so, for safety's sake, to get put in there. But, if somebody would have told me that, hey, that's great, you have 13 to 14 different flavors and recipes, and every single one of those recipes has to be submitted to a food lab for analysis. And by the way, that costs X amount of dollars per recipe that you submit. I would have told them, yeah, I'm going to stick with a hobby. So, but,
And I was in the health and fitness industry for 30 years, and I ran a supplement company. So I would have so many people that would come in and be like, I have a product that I would like to get submitted. And I'm like, dude, you really have no idea what it takes to get a product approved. And then especially if you're trying to sell it in a state like California, where you got to go through even more red tape just to be able to sell it in that state. You know what I'm saying?
I think absolutely. I think for me, if somebody would have said, well, you're joining and I've had friends who they're not that they're not supportive, they're very encouraging, but they do, like most of your friends that are your true friends, they're not afraid to tell you what you need to hear or play devil's advocate with you, And so I had several of them like going, oh, wow, so you're going to produce a hot sauce and put it out there because we don't have enough hot sauce in this world, right? I would laugh. Yeah, I get it. I mean, you go down any grocery aisle or whatever, and it, there's a ton of choices that are available for you. And then I would flip the script on them and go, and why do you think that is? And they would go, oh, because, people like, because people like it and they're always looking for something new to try. And, I tell them, I give them the example, not that I'm a big fan and I wouldn't want to, endorse them or anything like that, but there's a reason the sriracha craze hit when it did and went crazy for a couple of years there. It was something new and different, and it's a unique flavor profile, and people really gravitated towards it. There is room for growth in any industry. I tell you, if you have a niche and you find it and you have a quality product and you stand behind it and you develop not only good customer service, but you develop raving fans that you are connected with, then I don't care what your industry is, you can succeed in it. Don't let people tell you that, there's already, it's like, if you want to go to law school and become a lawyer and hang your own shingle and practice law, go for it. People say, oh, there's too many lawyers. Who cares? There's room for competition and enterprise,
And, one of the place that we met is called the Vetrepreneur Tribe. If anybody's listening to this and you're a veteran and an entrepreneur, definitely need to join the Vetrepreneur Tribe, because our tribe, and I'll leave it in the comments also, they support each other. They help promote each other and they help push each other.
That's for sure.
Without asking for anything back most of the time, So, I'll drop the show notes. So if you guys are veterans, entrepreneurs, definitely join the Vetrepreneur Tribe. Stephen Kuhn and Lane Balone are doing an amazing job. We have almost 15,000 entrepreneurs. So if you have a question or a problem, we'll find answers for you. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I've learned a lot in the brief time that I've actually joined the Vetrepreneur Tribe. And one of the things I've learned was that, man, you ask a question and people jump on it quickly to help you out, and it doesn't take much time. I think there were 15,000 members now. So you've got a huge resource pool there. And I love that it's not about a competition. It's not about like, oh, what can I get from you? It's like people really want to help each other succeed. And I find that refreshing, that one of the rules of joining the group, and I read the rules very carefully, was you have to provide value. It's not just for you to have a resource pool to promote your business to. It's just you need to provide value. Everybody's got experience or expertise that they can lend a hand with, even if it's just advice or a creative idea,
Yep. So now, how do the people that are listening to this, how can they get in touch with you? How can they order some of your products? And I know you said you have a discount code just for our listeners. So tell us about that.
I'll give you a little backstory on that. My company is called Simmerify Brands. It's obviously blatant takeoff of the Marine Corps motto. And one of the things I looked into was the Marine Corps has a very robust and strict trademark and intellectual property office where there's a lot of things that are trademarked by the Marine Corps you can't use in your advertising or anything that if they have it trademarked, it's for a reason. They protect their legacy, obviously. So I looked at things that I could incorporate that, embody my experience as a Marine in my logo and in my company that wouldn't violate that. So, you'll notice I don't use the Eagle Globe and Anchor. That's a big no-no. I don't use the term Semperfi is actually trademarked. So, but, derivatives of that you can use. And I thought it was a cool play on words. I like the word play and, combining the two, simmer meaning, by fire. And that's obviously what we do. And so it worked out well. And to include the names for all my sauces, they all come from they're inspired by either the recipe or something else. And so you'll find a lot of my hot honeys on my webpage on simmerfi.com. They use or incorporate the BEE in the names, like we have a tropical flavored one that has a little kick and, it's inspired by the Bobby McFerrin song, it's Don't Worry, Be Happy. And, he's from the Caribbean, so that kind of played well. We have one that, when I was growing up as a kid, because I'm assuming we're close to the same age, Muhammad Ali was a big hero of mine. So we have a milder honey sauce. It's called Float Like a Butterfly. And then the hotter component to that is Sting Like a Bee. So, but the hot sauces themselves, those are all Marine Corps, what we call grunt-inspired names. So the mild one is called Boot, because that's what we refer to somebody brand new in the fleet, or I don't know, in the Army, they may have called it an FNG, those kinds of things, right?
Yep.
We call them Boot. And so the mild green sauce I have is called Boot. Then they get a little hotter, and I have one called Libo Risk, which, if you're not familiar with Marine Corps terminology, when we get secured for the weekend, right, or free time, it's called Liberty. You get Liberty. And then, it gets shortened vernacular to Libo. And then certain guys will get branded with a name called Libo Risk, meaning they're probably going to get in trouble if they have a couple of drinks when they're out in town. So
that was me.
Huh?
That was me. I was that guy.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I have a habanero sauce. It's called Libo Risk. It's not too dangerous, but does need to be supervised, kind of thing. So I have a white one made with Caribe peppers. If you're familiar with that pepper, it's a spicy pepper that comes from the Caribbean. Looks exactly like a jalapeno, except that it's ghost white. So the sauce that would derive from that is white. And so I thought, what a perfect name. We'll call this Willie Pete, and it's really hot. And for most people who know in the military, Willie Pete is a slang term for white phosphorus. So that kind of blended itself. I have a hot one that is really robust that I took from the Marine Corps hymn, and it's called The Hells of Montezuma. And it's got a lot of Mexican hot peppers in it. Then we have one. Then my insanely hottest one is called FUBAR. And we took a derivative of that acronym that most every military veteran knows.
Oh yeah.
It stands for Fired Up Beyond All Recognition. So
oh really? Is that what it stands for?
Yeah, well, our sauce, that's what the FUBAR stands for.
Okay.
So it's pretty hot. It has a significant amount of ghost, scorpion, and reaper peppers in it. So it gets pretty warm. So anyway, your listeners, based on, I just described for you, I like to do wordplay with what things that are symbolic to me and the company. And then I looked at your podcast. So here is your coupon code. If you go on our website, your listeners can get 10% off their entire order across all of our products. 10% off. And the code word is Be Successful. BEE Successful. 2 words.
Oh, I love that. Okay, now the last question I ask everybody. If I ask the average person to do something in 7 days, because of our busy lifestyles and how crazy life is, they'll never get to it. But if I ask somebody to take an actionable step in the next 24 hours, they're more likely. So if you know somebody that's struggling in their business, what is something they can do in the next 24 hours to start to right the ship?
That's a great question. That is a fantastic question. I would say that that even though we both discussed it earlier on in the beginning when we first started talking, you and I, sometimes you just need to take a step back and take inventory. I know it sounds mundane. I know it sounds like it's a, God, nobody ever wants to do inventory, right? But sometimes, like we said in the military, it's not always bad to fail an inspection. And you'll have leaders that'll tell you that. And the reason why is because until you fail an inspection, you don't exactly know where your flaws are at sometimes. So when I say taking inventory, it's like take stock, right? Look at your business plan, look at your objectives, look at the steps that you're currently taking, and take stock, take inventory. What's working, what's not? What am I not putting enough time or attention to? What am I spinning my wheels on that actually offers no value to my company other than it looks good or what have you? Don't spend a lot of time on, does my logo work or does this work? No. Look at what works and concentrate on that for a minute. Look at what isn't working and find out ways that you could change that. I mean, like you said, join the Vetrepreneur tribe if you haven't, and ask a question like, hey, look, and nobody's going to criticize you for seeming like an amateur or new, because there's all levels. There's people who have been doing it for 20, 30 years and been in businesses. There's people who are just starting out. And sometimes you may ask a question on there that somebody else goes, holy crap, I was thinking the same thing, but I was too afraid to ask that question. Take it.
Yeah. I definitely, I totally agree on, everything you're talking about. And the most successful people have answered that same thing, is just to step back. Some even say, take out a piece of paper, write the pros and cons of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because, if it's when, if you think about something, it's one thing, but if you write it down, it becomes real. Even like they say, when you're setting a goal, if you write it down, then it's no longer a dream. Now it's actually a goal.
There's a reason that successful people do SWOT analysis on their own business or have somebody else take fresh eyes at it.
And I totally love that. This has been an amazing conversation, brother. I'm so grateful and honored.
Well,
so, guys, if you're listening to this, definitely check out the company. I want you to go and log on to their website right now. Check them out. Simberfi, definitely check them out. If you guys have any questions that we can answer, please leave a message, because now Anchor allows you to leave messages. Now you can leave a message and I can make sure we'll get the answer back to you. And follow us on all social media. We're everywhere. And check out our new podcast called Vertical Momentum. My brother, I'm so honored and grateful to have you on today.
Well, thanks, Richard. And, I do want some feedback from you when I send you these sauces, buddy. I want your honest opinion and let me know. Every business that produces a product, the feedback is really important because, again, like we just said, if I find something that's not working, I need to find out why it's not working. I'm not aware that it's not working unless somebody is honest and tells you that.
I love that, brother, and thank you so much. This was a short notice, just yesterday and today, so thank you for getting me your bio that quickly and the headshot and all that. So thank you so much. And
can I give a quick shout out?
Of course.
So like earlier I mentioned today is one of the days 30 years ago, during the ground war and Desert Storm. So I want to give a shout out to all my brothers I served with Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines. Our motto, which I still use to this day for 3rd Marines in Latin, is Fortes Fortuna Juvat, which literally translates to fortune favors the brave. And they are some of the bravest people I've ever worked with.
I love that, brother. Well, thank you. And now we've talked. I consider you a friend and a family member. And if there's anything I can ever do to help you, please let me know.
Absolutely. Same here.
All right, brother. Well, guys, God bless. Until next time, remember, everybody loves a comeback story. And today, it's your day. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us today. Please hit subscribe and share. Please feel free to leave us a comment.